live in the floor, the trade show floor, South by Southwest, and we're here with Uduak. Is
That's
that correct?
correct, Uduak.
Yay, I did it right. And Ladybrille is it your company? Is
That's
that
correct.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about Ladybrille and how it got started.
LAdybrille means the brilliant woman, and it got started, officially launched June 2007. But prior to that, the back end work that I did was to do the research and figure out whether there was a market for bringing African fashions directly to Western consumers.
Okay.
And in doing my research, I found that yes, it was the case that Western consumers within the U.S., which includes Africans and non-Africans, want to stay trendy, want to know what's going on with global trends, especially since the fashion industry is changing so rapidly, and to some degree want to be able to see Africa in a different light, not the same old running around naked or the ethnic type wear, which is fine but doesn't reflect a more cosmopolitan urban look.
Yeah.
So that's how Ladybrille came about. And I also wanted to show people that they could also think about the business side of fashion, which to me is very important.
Right.
And so I thought about publications that I really, really like and how I could sort of fuse the same concepts. And that was Women's Wear Daily. I love that I can get the finance, reports, the retail, the legal aspect of things. I also like Vogue, obviously, the Fashion Bible, and Essence magazine in terms of the heart aspect that comes out of Essence. There's the part with the former editor-in-chief now, who's no longer there, Susan Taylor, and she has this heart-to-heart talk type stuff. So I want to combine all of that, and in combining those, really reach into my background, my legal background, my media background, my fashion background. So that's how Ladybrille was born, and it's been the response has been very good.
Yeah, what has exactly the response been? What are people saying about Ladybrille?
Several things. I'm getting from a corporate level, companies that are very interested in what I'm doing, potentially invest in, but now I want to just take it at a slow pace to really make sure that I have the response that I want before we go that route. Non-Africans just amazed that there is a world that is this sophisticated, this amazing, that they can come on Ladybrille's site and see African designers. They can come on Ladybrille's site and see the latest fashion trends, whether from South Africa Fashion Week, Nigeria Fashion Week, or any other of the other countries, Uganda, and to see what people are actually doing. And they are not looking for handouts, but they're looking for opportunities to be able to showcase the talents that they have. For Africans, a sense of pride that wow, we can do this, and it's the first ever site that's done that in terms of being the first to launch this sort of innovative concept of fusing everything, creating a sort of a database for people to be able to find the right resources and information about Africa's fashion industry.
Yeah, and it's all because of obviously the internet. I mean, it makes you feel like you're, instead of Africa seeming so far away, that it's really more like a neighbor type thing. It's just, mouse click away. Really.
Absolutely, and also to really foster trade. I mean, our designers want to be able to sell directly to the Western consumer, but if we can't bring that, if we can't expose the Western consumer to African designers, really they can't purchase. So if you go on Ladybrille, for example, and maybe you click the category of designers, and you click, let's say, Sylvia Owori, who's based in Uganda, or you click Stone Cherry out of South Africa, some of the top fashion brands out of Africa as a whole, then you can decide, okay, I want to go ahead and purchase, from this people directly.
Right.
And that way, all the different barriers generally that would be present, you don't end up dealing with that because you can now directly talk to that designer.
That's neat. Let's talk a little bit more about the designers. How do you find them, and who are they, and how do you get them to become part of Ladybrille?
Absolutely. One of the things that I've always done, I've been in the fashion industry period as a whole on the Western part for quite a while now. I worked retail, I've modeled, I've helped produce shows, and then I write, extensively. So one of the things I did was the research to find out what kind of designers depict or make me feel comfortable that can, their work is up to par with what I know the fashion industry who would be interested in and the consumers here would be interested in. Right now, there's absolutely no requirement then to go to the tab on the frequently asked questions to see how you can be listed on it. But I also actively look at those kind of companies that are on par, where if a buyer here in the US says, or not just the US, Europe, says, I want to go ahead and purchase XYZ units of clothing. Can you ship that to me at a particular time in a particular space so that I can service my customers?
Right.
That the people, the links on my site can deliver that. So
Okay.
I'm very picky with the names that I list on the site.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then more specifically, like who
Mhm.
are the actual designers?
Mhm.
Like
Sure.
what do
There's
they do?
several ones. How about we just sort of cover a
Sure.
little bit of the continent, the names that keep coming
Okay.
out. Let's start with South Africa. South Africa has a very viable fashion industry that's doing quite well.
Okay.
They have several fashion shows. Audi Joburg Fashion Week. They have the South Africa Salam SA Fashion Week,
Okay.
among many other ones. And out of South Africa, the name that keeps coming up over and over again is Gavin Raja. Gavin, the name Raja obviously has an Indian heritage to it, but he is a South African that's doing phenomenal things, and he's also mentoring a lot of people. Last year, he took about 5 other young upcoming designers to Paris Fashion Week. He was on Tara Banks' show for the America's Next Top Model when they
Oh,
had
wow.
that series in South
Sure.
Africa. And overall, he has what I like about him is he has a very, very sharp idea about sort of the next trend. Some of the things I've seen on his runways, we've not even really been doing it here yet.
Okay.
So I do like that about Gavin Raja's collections.
Okay.
The other one I absolutely adore is Stone Cherry, also from South Africa. Just absolutely beautiful. It's one thing to talk ethnic, but how do you present it in a sophisticated way?
Right.
So if you can take African fabrics, and sometimes the African fabrics are not necessarily produced and manufactured in Africa. They might actually be from Europe. I've had corporate companies from Europe contact me and say, hey, you know what, we've been manufacturing this all the centuries. We thought you should know.
Yeah.
So, but Stone Cherry takes African fabrics and makes absolutely, absolutely beautiful designs, sophisticated, that I can wear as an attorney into the courtroom. You know, my friends, you know, that are, you know, in the financial sector can do the same thing, or just, you know, chilling and lounging on the streets,
Right.
or, you know, going to the gym or whatever. I
Yeah.
really, really love her designs. I also like Sun Goddess out of South Africa.
Okay.
Same concept, but it's royal, regal,
Yeah.
etc. Leaving South Africa, going to Nigeria, the name that does come up over and over again is Diola Sego.
Okay.
And I do like her designs. What's interesting about Diola is a lot of the fabrics are very local, but she can take it and make it look quite Western in terms of the fabric. Sometimes you'll see it and you say, is this an African fabric? Because it doesn't
Right.
look like it,
Right.
but it actually is. And the detailing in her work is superb. I also like up-and-coming designers within Nigeria. One called Jewels by Lisa. I hope
Okay.
I'm saying it right. What I like about her is particularly a unique African fabric called Ankara, and what she's done with the embellishments on the fabric. So
Okay.
that I find quite interesting. Then we go to Sylvia Awori of Uganda, who has been involved in so many different shows, and she has a very interesting collection. My favorite and all time is Oumi C. She's from Senegal. Stunning, stunning, stunning designs. Absolutely fabulous. And she takes it a step further in terms of social responsibility. And she makes sure that she's training the next generation of African fashion industry professionals,
Okay.
from the craftsmanship all the way up. I mean, like an institution that trains people, and I think that is so important. There's also Alpha D, who is considered from Niger, and he's considered the basically the father of African fashion. So he's an icon. He does more than just design. He also creates a platform for a lot of designers that otherwise would not have the exposure. So just overall, you know, there's
Yeah.
also, maybe the last one is Sika. Sika Designs and Collections, that's out of Ghana. But she's based in London, and I do like her collection. Very, very quality, just beautiful crypts. And again, those people can straddle both worlds, where their designs are local but have a very global feel to it, so that you can wear it anywhere around the globe and not feel that it's confined to
Sure.
one area.
Now people can find all these designers on Ladybrille, correct? Do they
Absolutely.
just go? There's like a designer section or
Yes.
something.
When
like
you
that?
go, when you log on Ladybrille.com,
Uh-huh.
you click on the Bloggazine tab. Once you click on the Bloggazine tab, then all you need to do is just scroll down, and you'll see Ladybrille designers, Ladybrille African designers, and the links to them. And I've just talked about fashion designers. Obviously, within fashion, there are a lot more. There are accessory designers that we have there, and a lot more different, areas. It's just really where you want to go.
You know, we touched on this a little earlier, but I think maybe there's a slight disconnect between people in the United States or Canada or whatever thinking about what African, designers, what the fashion is over there. We have a mental picture that's probably very off from what's true over there. And do you find that people, after going to your site, are kind of like their minds are opened a little bit, and what has that response been?
Absolutely, and one thing we have to understand, and I think a lot of people on the streets in the USA, in Europe, everywhere else, people that are very fashion conscious know the world is changing.
Yeah.
Let's look at how we're manufacturing our clothes and what we're buying in stores today in the US.
Yeah.
Made in India, made in, Asian countries, Bangladesh or China. I mean, how many products do we have made in China? But
Right.
particularly clothing products. We have sometimes big designer names out there manufactured in the same factory like a not so well-known designer.
Right.
But everything's been now transported back here. People
Right.
are realizing that the world is really small, that we're moving towards a trend of globalization.
Yeah.
And since we've been moving towards that trend, it affects how people dress. Also, what's interesting is people are now having more ownership of their different heritages. I mean, you have a lot of people that straddle both worlds where their parents are from a different country,
Sure.
but then they're born in the USA, and it's sort of like, how do I balance that from Africans to Indians to everybody else in between?
Yeah.
So I'm finding that when people go on the site, they're happy. They feel refreshed. Like,
Yeah.
wow, this is really cool.
Right.
We didn't know there was something like this.
Sure.
And I'm finding that even Africans within the USA are also like, finally, something that responds to us. Because when you look at the statistics on how blacks as a whole consume, Africans being a part of that
Yeah.
that demographic, Africans are very well educated. They have very high incomes for the most part. Some of them go all the way to graduate level in terms of their degrees, but they don't necessarily have groups or companies that are catering to their individual specific needs. They send billions of dollars back home, which even surpasses the aid that the U.S. gives to Africa. And they're interested in people that can start talking about, let's change Africa through Africans, not necessarily throwing money at them and saying,
Right.
oh, get better, etc.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a good response because people can see a very different way, and that fashion is business, and in Africa's fashion industry, you can make money. Obviously, it has issues like any other industry, and there's
Right.
still infrastructural stuff that could be better. But yeah, that's been what's going on.
Right. So people can actually order all this clothing straight from your website.
Yeah,
then?
they don't order it from my website because we're
Okay.
essentially media, obviously.
Okay.
So we write, we profile, we talk to so many interesting individuals within
Gotcha.
Africa's fashion industry and here, because we're
Okay.
not sort of working in a global vacuum, so to speak, or African vacuum. The world is bigger than just Africa.
Sure.
But you go online. Let's take Stone Cherry, like I talked about. You
Okay.
link directly to Stone Cherry, and then you can contact that designer directly. So it's basically a database or a media company that focuses on letting you know the ins and outs, and you can then contact those individuals that you're interested in or companies, and order
Okay.
directly.
Yeah. And then the URL for that, what's the website?
www.ladybrille.com.
Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. It's
My
been
pleasure.
very interesting.
Thank
and,
you so
and
much
have
for
a
having
great
me.
time at South by Southwest.
Thank you.
All right.